So you're in the market for a 14.5-inch AR-15. Which one should you be looking at? Now, the market is completely saturated with AR-15s. There are a ton of different manufacturers. There's a ton of different manufacturers putting different components in each one. And I oftentimes think that for a lot of people in the market for rifles, this can be kind of confusing and overwhelming for people. You know, there's so much to look at, and you know, it can be kind of confusing in terms of like, hey, which one, you know, should be good for me that is in this type of price range. So I don't want to go over all of the rifles out there on the market. I think that would be kind of difficult. However, I do have three that I recommend a lot, and I want to go over these three specifically, go over, you know, the key differences in the three. Up front, there's not a whole lot of differences in the three. All three are going to have a 14.5-inch mid-length barrel. All three are going to launch a 223 round very accurately. They're all going to be durable, and they're all going to be really pleasant and soft to shoot. So there's a couple minor differences in the three that may matter to some and may not matter to some. There's going to be price differences, there's going to be material differences, and overall, I don't want to say build quality, but overall build differences in the three. How are they machined, etc. So I wanted to go over these three, and this way you guys can decide which one will be best for you. We will start off with the Mod Map Patrol Rifle. This will be the least expensive option of the three. Not that it's bad, however, it is the least expensive option of the three. This one comes right in about 1,600 bucks. And let's tell you guys what you get for 1,600 bucks. I've got my cheat sheet here, the Modern Material website. So it's made up in New Jersey, and you have a couple different options for Cerakote. This one happens to be green, comes right in about 6 pounds, so it's kind of a lightweight, handy type of rifle. They come with their proprietary muzzle brake that Modern Material makes. So you won't be able to put a suppressor or anything like that on that particular muzzle brake. It is very, very effective. However, I'm not a fan of muzzle brakes, so I drilled that pin out, put a Surefire flash hider on there, and then just repinned the Surefire flash hider. I'm a big fan of the Surefire flash hiders. I like the way the guns recoil a whole lot better with a flash hider than a muzzle brake, and I can also put my Surefire suppressors on there. So that's what I did with that. They have, let's see, the barrel is a Modern Material custom profile barrel, I guess that they spec'd out. It's a 14.5-inch mid-length barrel that is going to be made from 4150 chrome moly, M4 feed ramps, 1 1/8 twist, and the barrel is going to be black nitride plus corrosion resistant finish. The black nitride barrels, in my experience, are very, very durable. It is also going to have a 13.5-inch anti-rotation handguard on them. And by anti-rotation, I mean they have a pin at the very back of the handguard that will basically key into the upper receiver and not allow the rail to move around on the upper at all. So it will be a very, rigid lockup, and it will also be a very rigid rail that you can do things like mount lasers on. If you're going to mount a laser on a gun, it needs to be on a rail that is very durable, because think about your rail as essentially like a scope mount, right? Like you wouldn't want a scope mount to be flimsy. Same exact thing with a rail that you're going to mount a laser aiming module to. So you can totally do that with these. These rails are going to be pretty rigid. Moving on, the bolt carrier group has a nitride finish on it as well, so that will be very, very durable. MPI, certified military specifications, yada yada. 4150 gas key, etc. All right, so that's all the nerd stuff for the most part. You guys can go take a look at their website if you want to look at the fine details of like the type of metal and all that crap that it's made from. But the really interesting thing about this is it comes with some things in terms of like furniture and trigger and all that stuff that I think are really good value, especially for the money that you're paying for these guns. So it's like not only are they put together really nice by people who care about them, you're also going to have some, nice upgraded furniture that you would probably buy anyway for a rifle that you just bought. So like instead of taking things off and throwing it away and putting new stuff on and paying for new stuff, this thing will come with some upgrades. Those upgrades are going to be a Radian Raptor SL ambidextrous charging handle, which I really like. It also has a hand stop, which I promptly take off because I'm not a fan of the hand stops. But if you're a fan of the hand stops, this will come with it. It is also going to have a 7075 T6 forged aluminum upper and 7075 T6 forged lower. For you metal guys out there, you nerds, that means that this thing is very, very durable. 7075 T6 is some very durable and very rigid material, which is important to me because especially on the upper receiver, if you're mounting, obviously a barrel has to get mounted in it, and if you're mounting a barrel in a receiver that isn't rigid, chances are that gun is not going to be as accurate as it possibly could be if it had, a more rigid material for the upper, which this one does, 7075 T6. So that's really good. Comes with a Hyperfire enhanced trigger. It says that it's 5.5 pound brake, but I'll be honest, I think it's less than that. I removed that. I'm a Geisley snob. I love these Geisley SD3Gs, but the Hyperfire trigger is really, really nice. So if you don't want to take that trigger out, you can totally live with it and have a really nice trigger right out of the box. It's also going to come with a Springco buffer spring. It's also going to have a modern material end plate that you can mount a sling to, which is important to me because that's where I like to mount my sling. And it's also going to come with B5 furniture, which is great furniture, but I'm a big fan of these Magpul DT. Yeah, DT. I call it DTF stocks. And it's also going to come with B5 grips, which I removed for the Driven Arms Co. grips. Nothing wrong with the B5 stuff. I just, I like what I like. It is also going to come with a Magpul magazine. So all in all, this is a great rifle with really, really good components. Overall, it's kind of a simple build. It's not ambi or anything like that. But for, duty use, for home defense, for the guy that wants to go to a class and get really, really good with rifles, this would be a really great option for you. All right, next up, we will talk about the ADM UIC Mod 2. Now, this one comes in right at about $2,200, of course, depending on the options that you get with this thing. So it is going to be a little bit more expensive than the Mod Mat. However, there are some things about this that are offered that are kind of nice. Do you need these things? No. You definitely don't need it if it's like, a duty rifle, but they do make life a little bit easier. Now, this is going to have forged receivers. So what I mean by forged is they basically drop the block of aluminum in a CNC machine. The CNC machine runs around and does all these things that are proprietary to the ADM UIC Mod 2 receivers. So you'll notice that the receiver set looks completely different from pretty much any other receiver set that you're going to see on the market. Now again, since it is forged, it offers some different options that you won't see on other rifles. The first noticeable one, I would say, is, I'm not even sure what they call this, I could probably look on their website, but this little doohickey here on the lower, right, you can pull up on, lock the bolt to the rear. On reloads, you can also push down on it and drop the bolt. This thing is in a really great spot, in my opinion, because it's out of the way of the trigger. So on fast reloads, I can, stick a reload, drop the bolt, and it's nowhere near the trigger guard. So for you guys that are worried about, bad levers, I push the bad lever and all of a sudden I'm in the trigger guard, I don't worry about that stuff, but some people do. This is a nice option for you. It's also going to have some different stuff in way of ambidextrous features, like a left side magazine release. So for you lefties, this will be a great rifle for you. You can drop the magazine with your left hand. You don't have to reach up with your right hand and do the whole strip thing. You could reach up with your left trigger finger, or your trigger finger rather, and then drop the magazine. You could also lock the bolt to the rear and drop the bolt, because this oversized bolt catch is again, oversized, and it's pointing to the rear of the gun where your finger would be. There we go, as you can see there. So that is pretty freaking cool. It is going to come with a 14.5-inch 223 Wild barrel. It's also mid-length, and this thing is super duper accurate. I've taken this gun out to 550 yards and very, very successful with it. This, of all the three, is probably one of the softest for whatever reason. And this thing, you know, it's stock. I haven't changed anything. This has a H2 buffer in it, and you know, I basically have just left this thing stock. And you know, even like with the 3-prong Surefire flash hider, this is a very, very soft shooting gun. So let's go over some of the nerdy stuff about the gun, what comes on this thing. So with the lower, it's fully ambi. You will have a competition style magwell, which I promptly threw a Driven Arms Co. magwell over top of that. Do you need the Driven Arms Co. magwell? It sure makes it really, really nice, but it has a very generous magwell already on there, and you can see where that material is on the actual lower and not the Driven Arms Co. magwell. It's a very generous magwell, and it makes for like super duper fast reloads, especially with the handy little lever there. Moving on, it comes with a Geissele G2S trigger, which I think is a really, really great value. Now, it's not the most expensive Geissele trigger. However, I really could not tell much of a difference between that trigger and the SSAE trigger. They're very, very similar. That comes with this gun. Now, again, I'm a huge fan of the Geissele Super Dynamic 3-gun trigger, so that is what I put in this one. But again, the G2S trigger, really, really great trigger out of the box. It's going to come with a Magpul MOE grip, which I'm not a huge fan of, so I went ahead and put a BCM grip on this one. It's also going to come with a MOE SL stock, which I love. These stocks are great. They lock up really great. They have, and the angle to the back of them is actually really nice. Since they have that little bit of a cant to them, it makes it really easy to get a full purchase on my shoulder. So I like those a lot. It's got the ADM HD buffer in it. I have no idea what the heck that is, but sounds cool. I'm sure that makes a difference. It also has a 10 position buffer tube, which is nice for you guys that like minor adjustments. Me, I basically rock out with my stock out, so that's where that goes. It has a QD end plate, again, super important to me because that's where I like to put my slings. Can adjust the tension between the upper and lower with a screw somewhere in this thing. As you can tell, I don't know where it is. Oh, there it is. It's underneath the grip. You can adjust the tension. I haven't done that just because, I mean, this thing's tight enough. Everything on this gun is really nice and tight. The barrel, again, is 223 Wild. It's a 1 1/8 twist, and it is a 4150 nitrided Criterion barrel, which explains why it is so freaking accurate. It has a premium BCG that is nitrided. Again, there's that word again. Really, really durable stuff. Raptor ambidextrous charging handle, just like the Mod Mat. You have a choice of muzzle devices that you can put on it. If you are like me, you will just get a Surefire 3-prong flash hider. I really dig these. It has a aircraft grade billet lower and upper. Sounds cool, sounds really durable, which I think it is. It has a Type 3 mil-spec anodized finish or a Cerakote finish, whichever one you prefer. I went with the anodization because I'm not super fancy. A black gun is just fine by me. The 14.5-inch gun is going to come right in at about 6 pounds, 9 ounces. Now, that's all the nerdy stuff that comes on this gun. So for $2,200, you're getting a gun that already has Magpul furniture on it. It's got a nice slim rail on it that's M-LOK. It comes with a barrel that shoots lights out, your choice of muzzle device, Geissele trigger, ambi controls. It has what we'll call a battery assist device, I guess you can call it, up here on the lower, which comes in very, very handy. It comes with a very generous magwell, ambi safety selectors, all this stuff. Like, you're getting a lot for your 2,200 bucks. All right, last but not least, Hodge Mod 2. Now, this is definitely along the lines of a more custom style gun, right? And I say that because you're probably not going to just go to a gun shop and find a Hodge. And if you did, someone basically bought it part by part and sent it somewhere to be put together, and then it somehow ended up in that gun shop. These things typically don't get circulated around fully built. The way that you will get a Hodge is you basically will go on the Hodge website, look for the dealers who sell the Hodge stuff. Maybe you call one of the dealers and say, hey, one of the receiver sets coming in, right? The receiver sets come in, you buy a receiver set. Then you find out, hey, there's barrels over here. Then you buy the barrel, then you get the rail. And you eventually have enough stuff to build a complete rifle. And then you would send it to someone like Big Tex Ordnance or David Wilson, folks that are very competent and in building rifles and know Hodge guns in and out. I would highly recommend either of those two folks. Most of my Hodge guns have been put together by Big Tex Ordnance. However, I do have one put together by David Wilson, and it is just as good. Like, it's phenomenal. Now, why are you paying more? So Hodge guns are very, very small batch, hence the reason why you can't just go buy a Hodge, right? Everything is small batch, which means the QC on Hodge stuff is through the roof. The receiver sets, the rails, the barrels, everything on this gun has gone through a very, very rigorous QC steps, and you know, if it's out there available, it is more or less perfect. They're also made out of, the receiver sets are also made out of different materials than what you will commonly see on any of the other rifles, right? Most other rifles, usually the receivers are either like 60-65 aluminum or like 70-75 aluminum, which is great, but the Mod 2s specifically are made from C405 aluminum alloy, which is very, very rigid material. And that, I think, is part of the magic, right? It is very rigid material that the barrel gets to be seated in. The barrel does have to be thermo-fit in these receivers. And since the receiver set is so rigid, I think that really plays to not only the durability of these guns, but how accurate they will stay over time, especially you know, if they get hot, stuff like that. Like, this gun remains accurate because of how rigid these receiver sets are. 3 different rails that you can get with Hodge guns. It's either going to be a S-lock, a pinch lock, or a wedge lock. This one just so happens to be the S-lock. I think it's probably my all-time favorite Hodge rail. All of them are going to be extremely rigid. These rails, guys, you can tow a truck with this rail. Like, you will not be able to flex this rail at all. They are extremely rigid, which, if you are going to mount a laser on this thing, that is very, very important. Even if you're going to mount iron sights on it, right? The rail being rigid is very important. The rail has to hold 0. These rails will be phenomenal for that. They're also anti-rotation, where they have these little ears on the back of the rail, and they also have a pin, just like the Mod Mat does, where it has a pin that interfaces with the upper receiver so the rail can't twist around. It's got a huge barrel nut with a ton of surface on it for this rail to grab onto. It is a very, very rigid rail. The barrel is going to be a 1 1/8 twist. It is a chrome-lined hammer forged barrel. Very durable barrels. These things will last somewhere around 30 to 40K at least the way I shoot. I've had them last 30, 40K. I'm shooting them at a very fast pace. They're getting very hot. And yeah, they will last a really, really long time in my experience. The Hodge guns will also come with different type of furniture depending on who puts it together and depending on how you spec it. Remember, this is a custom gun, so you're probably going to be like, hey, can you put this trigger in it, or can you put this safety on it? For the most part, it is going to come with Badger Ordnance accessories, like the charging handle, Badger Ordnance charging handle, like this one. That will most likely come on your Hodge Mod 2s. It will most likely come with the Badger Ordnance safety selector like on this one, which is great because just like the other ones, this can either have a 90-degree throw or a 60-degree throw. Obviously, I keep the 60-degree throw. A lot of these will also come with the LaRue MBT trigger, which is a nice two-stage trigger. Nothing wrong with that trigger at all. As I've said, I'm not a huge fan of the two-stage stuff, so I gravitate towards the SD3G triggers, which is what is in this one. And yeah, this again, it is a custom gun that is going to have stuff on it that no other gun has in terms of materials. The way this thing is going to hold up, like it is an absolute, like if you think about like family heirloom, this is going to be one of them. Like you're not going to be able to destroy this gun. And with minimal maintenance, this thing is just going to keep ticking. Shoot the barrel out, put another barrel in it. It's going to be just fine. Like this thing will just keep going. And that has been my experience with them. They just keep ticking. They eat all kinds of ammo. There you have it. There's the Hodge Mod 2 14.5-inch gun. All right, so there you have it. There's the 3 rifles I typically recommend when people ask, hey man, I'm in the market for a new rifle. Which company should I look at? What components should I be looking for on these things? Modern Material, American Defense Manufacturing, and Hodge. You guys would be ecstatic with either 3. These rifles will suit anyone just fine. Again, they're going to be very, very durable. They're going to be accurate. They're going to be very reliable. I would trust either of these guns with my life. And it just really comes down to, your budget and what you're looking for in a rifle. And hopefully this video helped you guys out. If you guys have any questions about any of these 3 rifles or want to see more of either one of them, let me know in the comments. As always, happy to answer any of the questions.